From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Anxiety Project podcast. Here on episode 280, we're diving into anxiety questions you guys sent in. You guys sent these in through the website at unpluganxiety.com, and it's easy because under the contact section, you can write out anything you want, anything you want to ask me. It can be about the program, it can be about the one-on-one coaching, and it can be a question that I can answer on the show, or you can just a personal question that you want help with. So go do that. Go write down your questions if you have any during the week that you think of. Go to unpluganxiety.com. Now, we're starting off this episode with a question from Angie. This is a really common question, concern around anxiety. This is a big one, one that I wrestled with for such a long time in my life. And it's very common with people that I see via one-on-one coaching. She says, why does a new symptom show up after one goes away? Very common with health anxiety. She says, I feel like I am in a constant state of hyper awareness over bodily sensations that never seems to end. Yeah, it's never ending. It seems like it's never ending. And I get this a lot. And I remember one particular story with a client where I was talking with him and he said he had this strong emotional tie around his heart, and when it would beat fast, he would get overly anxious about it. He would have catastrophic thoughts that it was heart disease or some sort of heart condition. And when we talked it out, and this is really important, this is why I recommend you talk with someone who overcame the same problems you're dealing with. Because when you start to talk things out, you start to unravel, and then you start to dive deeper into the weeds of your past where it originally formed. And he discovered that there was a time in his life where he went to the doctors, and you have white coat syndrome when you have anxiety. Your cholesterol's a little high when you're in the doctor's office, mainly because you're just stressed being there. It's like the nurse overly, I don't want to say overreacted, but she kind of fed him a very toxic narrative that you could develop such and such a problem because your cholesterol's so high, and then he overreacted emotionally, and this spiraled into years. I mean, years of this rumination over his heart, and this kind of label he attached to that feeling of the palpitation or the rapid heart beating. And so he would avoid things that would trigger this feeling, like exercise, or even becoming overly sensitive to doctors' offices, and just becoming overly sensitive to checking the rhythm and like the blood pressure and all of these things. And so it became like this massive dragon. But once you start to unravel where it originates from, it opens your eyes. There is like this huge revelation at the core of the sensitivity of this sensation. So firstly, Angie, the symptoms are overwhelming because the brain wants to stop the suffering. It wants to stop. And you're uncomfortable. You feel out of control. You have no control over, the palpitation or the dizziness, the lightheadedness, nausea, whatever it is. And the obsessing over this symptom is due to your desire of solving the problem. You just want to figure it out. You become the detective, and your body's now the crime scene. So why then? I think this is another big question is, why did the old sensation go away? Well, you could have lowered it on the hierarchy of problems, and how one does that is, well, another symptom becomes more known. So you react with strong emotion to this symptom, making the other one shrink back into the dark. Or you may have resolved it and it no longer poses as a threat. The emotional ties around it unraveled. And so I have a great story about this because I remember years ago when I had this lump on the inside of my lip. And it was there for like 8 months. And, I would catch myself thinking about it on a day-to-day basis. Like, why is it still there? It's never going to go away. And then I went to the doctor. And I swear, this thing has been in my mouth for like 8 months. And you know how the mind goes. Oh, it's been here for a while. It's probably something serious. And the mind kind of runs with that emotion. The doctor looked at it, said it was normal, that it's common. Just don't think about it. It'll go away on its own. You don't need any creams or medications for it. And this kind of, I felt this weight lift. And then I noticed that because of the doctor's reaction, my emotional ties around it lifted. And then it went away in a week. And I thought, well, why did it go away so quick? And I think it's because, well, when you're investigating something like a bodily sensation, your focus goes to it, but also in my mouth, my tongue was probably mapping that area. My teeth were probably mapping that area all the time, wondering what it could be, what it could be, what it could be. And then I think because when the doctor said that, it lifted my concern, and then I just didn't care about it anymore. And it went away so rapidly. And I think that's the case. I think when you focus in on something, a symptom or like a feeling, a sensation, so much energy goes towards it, and you can make up stories. You can kind of enhance the pain or the sensation even more greatly because you're so hyper focused on it. And then when you stop caring, that hyper focus actually lifts, and your kind of body relaxes, and it can repair itself when it relaxes. And I think it's so counterintuitive. That's what I got from that experience. It's so counterintuitive just by honing your focus in on that thing. And so what's the root of all of this? Well, anxiety is the response when you are in unfamiliar territory, when you're in the unknown, when you don't understand something. It's your threat detector. Everything is now relevant. So now you're in this hypersensitive state. You encountered something you do not understand, not yet mastered. So understand it. Understand it. What first brought about the anxiety? Was it an emotional experience? Well, it must have been, right? What was the experience exactly? Did something happen to you? Did you do something? And this will open the gateway to healing. The mind also wants to categorize the symptom. It wants to categorize the symptom so that it can reduce the complexity of the symptom, of the unknown. And so it'll label the bump or the symptom, sensation as something catastrophic that you already know exists in the world. It could be a disease, cancer, heart disease. Maybe the nurse, the doctor will label something and it might not even be that. Mislabeling is so common. And so, yeah, the mind likes to go to the worst case scenarios so that it can reduce the complexity. It wants to give name to something so that it can put it in a box. But the thing about that is you give it a name, oh, it's cancer, but you don't know for sure. It's still unknown. It's like, yeah, it's cancer, it's cancer, it's cancer. So what if? But it's like, I just don't know. And it drives people mad. It drove me mad going through this health anxiety in my 20s. Drove me mad. At this point, the victim mentality can really get going. It can snowball. At this point, you don't really know that you inhabit a world of uncertainty. You feel it, but you can't rationalize it. Your anxiety is an indicator that you're in a world of uncertainty. And so that's understandable that you feel sensations, because anxiety produces sensations because of the cortisol and adrenaline that is pumping through your body. Your body's in threat detection mode and it needs to respond accordingly. It needs to be hyperly sensitive so it can be reflexive and just at a moment's notice react. So how do you resolve, this is the big question, the emotional ties? How do you resolve these? Well, understand yourself. Understand why your anxiety response is active and the reasoning behind your symptoms actually being present. And, that's why I created this channel, is for you guys to understand that, well, your anxiety is a cycle. You react to the sensations, and that's an emotional reaction. And then the sensations enhance, and it becomes this vicious loop that people just can't seem to understand. But it's not difficult, because think about it like this. You feel it, you get the emotional what if, and then you experience the catastrophic images represented in the mind, because that makes sense, because when you go out into the unknown, the right hemisphere generates imagistic representations of what you don't understand to prepare you for potential threats. So it prepares you, it could be cancer, could be the worst case scenario, could be this disease, that disease, could be, who knows what's lurking in the dark. And then you react to that and you feel the strong negativity of the emotion, right? And that only keeps the sensation alive, because the sensation's already there to begin with, because your anxiety system, the adrenaline and cortisol, is moving through your body. And so, yeah, you can get really hyper focused on one sensation, and then when one disappears, or when another more prominent one shows up, you give your attention to that one, and the other one that you were ruminating about actually lessens in size, and maybe you'll even forget about it because there's another sensation there. And sometimes you might even resolve it. Maybe go to the doctors, you get it checked out, and the doctor, says, "Oh, you're healthy, you're fine," and it kind of releases some of that baggage. But then there's another one that you're ruminating about because you can't get a grip over it, because anxiety takes over all brain processes. Naturally so. Your limbic system is way more sophisticated than your prefrontal cortex. It's way more sophisticated. So for me, I had to build faith and trust in myself. I had to study myself. Why am I suffering so deeply? Do I think I'm an unhealthy person because I'm ruminating about my health all the time? Yeah, I'm kind of unhealthy because, I could stop eating sugar. I don't feel good when I eat a pizza. I don't feel good when I'm ordering this Chinese food. I don't feel good when I'm not exercising enough, when I'm not walking around in nature, when I'm waking up late, or, all of these things were, I had to kind of, my lifestyle choices are now center of attention, because I just believed I wasn't a healthy person. I had to build up this new identity. So if I build up this new identity, maybe I don't have to spend so much time thinking about my health, because maybe I can believe and trust in myself that I am healthy and that my body can overcome, like that it can heal itself, really. So you create a healthy version of yourself. Become comfortable living in an ocean of uncertainty instead of remaining in your comfort bubble. And that leads me into this next question that comes in from Liam. Could continual anxiety do harm in the future? I love this question. I don't talk about this enough. Unless you focus your attention on your shift in lifestyle, then it can cause harm in the future in various ways. So let's talk about that. You become more susceptible to pathologies. So culture will surely and most definitely sway you into poor diets. It'll sway you into medications. It'll sway you into distractions. It'll sway you into products that are labeled as solutions, but only leave a hole in your pocket and don't solve the root cause of your problems. You become a dependent test tube of society. Culture's aim is not for you to get better. It doesn't want you to get better. It wants you to stay a dependent self-consumer. And well, it doesn't want you to get better because to get better, it's cheap. It doesn't cost much. Like a low carb, meat-based diet, you don't need to buy all these fancy products, potions, and powders when you go on a proper human diet. Where is the profit in ice baths? Where is the profit in exercise? Because the pharmaceutical companies are definitely going to starve if everyone is doing these natural ways of living, these primitive ways of living. I mean, walks in nature, breathing, deep breathing exercises. I mean, that's cheap. That's cheap. You know, developing a routine at home of yoga, meditation, that doesn't cost anything. Meditation is free. Anxiety can keep you in a dependent state, and it can keep you dependent on other people for reassurance. The likelihood that these people that you're around know more about your problems than you do, that's rare. That's rare. So being in this cycle of comfort is analgesic. It blocks pain receptors, right? It makes you feel good for the moment, and it can make you feel loved. And the attention is addictive. And to break free of this attention becomes more and more difficult. It cements in this victim mentality. As time goes on, the victim withdraws emotional currency from those around them. And it makes sense because don't you have a friend that kind of leans on you for help? They wake you up at 12 in the morning, 1 in the morning with help, and they continuously lean on you for reassurance, but they never seem to kind of overcome the problems that they're coming to you about. And so over time, you realize that they're more of a burden on you than actually being useful. That, you know, when you see a pattern in someone and the pattern is not good, that they're just using you for something. Well, over time, I've seen that within myself, and I saw it with other people, that eventually it gets to a point where you say, to hell with them. They're not worth my time. And that's terrifying for that person because they're the victim and they need these people around them for the reassurance, for the attention, because they're very self-centered. And so the victim withdraws emotional currency to the point where the person that is providing the currency has nothing left, doesn't care about them. They don't believe in them anymore because there's no growth. They're not becoming the independent problem-solving creatures that they're supposed to be. And it's very unattractive. And you know, what's interesting is that it could be immediate family. It could be immediate family that play the same victim game as you. And that's a very, very dark place to be. You know, being around like parental figures, family, close family, that play the same victim card. And it's like a huddled bubble of comfort And so when the person goes out into the world and experiences some sort of snake and it bites them, they come back home and they're comforted by, junk, by medications, by poor beliefs and values and just knowledge, poor knowledge. But the victim, this means that you become more of a burden to people than being someone useful. Remember, the victim mentality is ego self-centered. It's all about my feelings. It's all about my desires. And if I don't get my way, I'm going to get upset. And one of the great tools in anxiety recovery is to put your situation in the past tense, meaning I used to suffer. I used to suffer. I am this courageous, determined, curious person. To shift anxiety into curiosity as an opportunity, as a challenge, rather than something that is going to keep you shackled as the victim. I used to. I am a curious person. Shifting the frame that you inhabit. Very useful. The sufferer stays with what's familiar. They don't leave their comfort zone. So they don't grow. They don't grow. The partner that you're with may leave you because of this, because there is no sign of any development whatsoever. No one wants a dependent infant, because that's what it really is. That victim in their comfort bubble who's extracting emotional currency from people, that's like an infant, right? Because those people that we admire, they're self-reliant, they're confident, they have self-respect. And the only way you get there is that you develop the inner resources to, well, thrive on the road when no one's around. You know how to survive in the jungle. You know how to survive in the chaotic landscape. You know how to regulate your emotions. You have master over the inner deities within you, the things, the desires and instincts within you. You have control over them rather it having control over you, because that's what being dependent is these things inside of you, desires and impulses. They're running the show. You're a slave to them. You're a slave to them. And so when you can't get the medication or the reassurance or the attention or, the comfort, what happens? You get upset. You get upset. It's like a little child getting upset. And I always look at that kind of inner drive as like this little child that you need to control. It's like a dog that needs to be trained. On a physical level, health anxiety can be harmful because think about it. If your adrenaline and cortisol is being pumped through your body like mad continuously, well, you're burning up a lot of resources. You're burning up a lot of resources. It ages you. But being in this hyper state can make you lose sleep. It can make you lose sleep. You can make mistakes. It slows down digestion. And to counter this, all you have to do, and it's difficult, but it's difficult because you have to adopt new routine. But you have to really want it, You have to calm down your parasympathetic nervous system. Sorry, you have to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That is your rest and digest system by doing stress releasing exercises, calming yourself down. Exercise is so important. Walks in nature, right? Meditation, time with yourself, just treating yourself like you're actually someone you care about. If you don't have 10 minutes a day for sacred time, then you're not living, and don't expect things to get better. Like, that's it. This channel is not about reassurance or a pat on the back. This channel is about reality, truth. I'm not recommending supplements to you. I'm not recommending medications to you. I'm giving you truth. This is, if you want to better yourself, you have to sacrifice something for the sake of your potential self. And so lastly, to conclude this episode, if you avoid situations that you feel uncomfortable in, then you'll never grow in any way, and you won't grow any self-respect for yourself. Clients report to me all the time after they go through a difficult, challenging time in their life, they yearn for that challenge again. And it's so fascinating because I've dealt with so many clients who go through a really rocky period in their life, dealing with anxiety, depersonalization, health anxiety, family concerns, health concerns. And then after it all, after the chaotic waters subside, they always tell me, Brad, man, did I ever grow so much during that period? Man, did I ever realize that how I'm capable of traversing that chaotic landscape. It is so interesting because they see a different side of themselves. They encountered their potential. And you grow as a consequence. And people yearn to go back there because they develop a self-respect. Man, look at me. I stuck to that even though it was difficult. Even though it was difficult, I did that thing. Man, that's what we should have been learning here in the Western world since grade 1. Face your fears, go out into the world. Even though it's difficult now, the waters will subside, but you just have to voluntarily struggle through it. You have to drag yourself there, and you have to have that faith along with it, that because you're struggling, that you're going to grow as a consequence, that it goes hand in hand. The struggle and growth go hand in hand. You see a new side of yourself. It brings out your potential. And that's where I'm going to leave you today on this Q&A episode. Thank you, everyone. Make sure to go over to Spotify. Please leave a rating. It only takes 1 minute. I just greatly appreciate that. That's all I ask. It'll mean the world to me. It'll help spread this podcast to so many people out in the world who are currently suffering. I'm so grateful to do this every week. I love doing this. I love planning these episodes, and I'm always excited to see and hear from you on what you think about these episodes. Thank you for being a part of this community, and rise above anxiety. I'll see you next time.
Brad's powerful anxiety recovery program is now available at unpluganxiety.com. The Anxiety Project program is downloadable and puts the power of anxiety recovery in your own hands. Visit unpluganxiety.com for more details. Recovery starts now.